everyone. Just wanted to open up with obviously fresh sentiments from last night. Um, Obviously, was disappointed to lose, but I thought I was really proud of this group of players and coaches that battled until the end, and you couldn't ask for more with 2 minutes to go. The game tied, so we had an opportunity that we didn't take advantage, and that's a disappointing thing. Wanted to be in the playoffs, so that part was disappointing. But the way we finished the season, it was positive. So I wanted to kind of take you on a kind of journey where, we started that, by getting a trade with Vooch and bringing him here, and in addition to Zach, and having all the additions of DeMar and AC and Lonzo, and I think the idea was, to have those three guys be surrounded by, those defensive, high-energy guys, and kind of like an engine, and I think that was the idea behind in 2021, the summer. So leading into 2021, I think we turned the roster around and we built the expectations, right, by being successful pre-fast and going to the playoffs in 21-22 season. But we were beating bad teams, losing to good teams. So we flipped the script in 22-23, going with high expectations and a lot of uncertainty due to injuries past season. Not knowing what to expect from our group. And we were, this year, much more competitive, but we lost a lot of close games. We stayed in a lot of games, but getting to All-Star game, we lost 16 out of 33 games to last shot, last minute, or overtime. And that's a lot of games to lose that are close. And last year we lost, we kind of finished 7-15 post All-Star, and this year we were 14-9, which was positive. Made a run at trying to make the playoffs, but the word of this year is probably inconsistency, right? So we did not, we would figure it out and we'd be on the right path and then would have a drop off. So inconsistency was there, but we were very competitive. We wanted to be a tough out anytime anybody's playing Chicago, and especially come to this building. And that's at least what the fan base can ask for. Again, the result is not what we wanted. And we look like a 500 team, but the way we finished the season, I think we're on the right path. And we're going to have all this time in postseason to sit down with front office and coaching staff and figure out what needs to be improving, moving forward. And I'll take your questions now.
Arturas, what did you learn about yourself in this job this season, how you performed, and what you could have done better?
I think I'm very hard on myself. I know partner Billy's, we're very hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up after every loss and what we can do better. I think because of the number of how many close games we lost this year, it was frustrating. But I prefer this script versus last year when we were, losing by huge number to good teams. So I think patience, that's where I learned about myself. The reason, we try to stay patient with this team around trade deadline is obviously because this team deserved a chance to figure things out. And second, you got to know what was available at the trade deadline, and there were no deals available to make this team better. So I think there are two things that worked out for this group to give them a chance to put this run together, which I'm actually proud of that group, players and coaches. And I think those are the things that, even though we failed at the end, it's information for me. So I'm constantly learning, stuff about this group, and so I can make better decisions when the time comes.
You brought up the trade deadline. As an organization, should you guys have picked a more definitive lane and said either, the Lakers, obviously it's different personnel and different trade offers, but they picked a lane. They said, we're going to clean out this, and this, and we're going to try making this team better. Or another team like Portland who says, this was our lane. Mm-hmm. To kind of go and stay on that same path, was it almost kind of redundant that you had enough of a sample size to see what this team was? And yes, there was a slight improvement, but at the end of the day, you guys are where you are.
I understand that. I think we chose the lane, which is stay with the same group, and that came out, post All-Star, the right decision. I don't know if we could have make any changes. We could have done better than 14-9. It's very difficult to do. So I think that was our lane, to stay with the group. And then the second is obviously you need to know what was available. And if there were no deals to make this team better, those are decisions that we made, and we stayed path.
Follow-up to that, did you get enough information now where you say, we're staying with this group again, the core group? I mean, you feel good that 14-9 is good enough where you're staying with this core and looking to tweak around, or are all possibilities in play as far as this is 2 years, this hasn't worked, we got to clean it up?
I mean, my responsibility is to look at everything. At the end of the day, to be 500 team is not good enough. It's not good enough for this organization. It's not good enough for the fan base. They deserve better. So I'm going to have to look at everything. How I can help this group to do better. And, we have to move forward. But I'll be open to anything.
Arturas, you talked about, feeling an obligation to give this group of the opportunity to stay together. You've been very consistent with that continuity. But the Lonzo Ball situation is still what it is, and it hasn't cleared up. So how does that inform what you do with that situation moving forward and the roster moving forward based on what we know about how he might also miss next season?
Well, it's difficult to project now because, obviously he had a surgery in March, so I don't know what his timeline right now. Once we have more information, I can make those assumptions. But, we'll have more information later.
And a follow-up on that, something you said the night of the trade deadline in Brooklyn really stuck out to me, where you talked about that summer you added DeMar and Lonzo via sign-in trades as an example of how you guys can get creative, manipulate the cap, improve your roster. You don't have a lot of tradable assets right now, from my view. Mm-hmm. You expressed, maybe I'm wrong, you expressed confidence that you'd be able to improve the roster this summer. What gives you that confidence, given your...
I do this different mechanism to make, this team better, and I'm going to look at anything. It's all about who's available, and, we're going to look at everything. So I'm not, committing to anything.
Arturas, obviously you never want to have your team finish last in the league in a statistic, and three-point shooting was kind of that glaring area this year. How much of a priority is that in this off season, and how does that kind of inform the way that you approach that process?
It will be a priority for us to kind of, change our shooting profile, because it's very difficult for us to go into every game with such a deficit. We last in rate, 3-point rate. We last in 3-point field goals made. And it's almost like we're going into every game, 8 points deficit to make up for it. So we're going to look at it. It's first as a shot creation, and then obviously have our personnel. So we're going to try to tweak that shooting profile for sure. It's one of the things that we're going to look at.
On that, do you feel like you have, kind of like Casey was saying, those trade assets where you can make the moves necessary to bring in enough shooters or improve that shooting volume?
Well, just to bring shooters, that's one thing. And I mean, we have a couple deficiencies, from, giving up second chance points. And, you can look at a lot of stuff, statistically and what we need to add. Shooting is going to be one of the things, but we also looking at, we have a lot of good shooters as well who are developing, and, we created a lot of shots, and at times they turned them down, for drives or anything like this. So and part of it, obviously, confidence as well. So we're going to look at everything.
I wanted to go back to Lonzo. Do you have any confidence that he's going to play next season?
I have confidence that he's going to come back. In terms of timeline, I don't have that timeline right now because he just had his procedure. So
You were kind of in this same position last year where he was sort of coming off procedure. You were sort of, not sure exactly what the timeline was. Looking back on it, do you have any regrets on sort of how you entered the season at point guard? Do you wish you could have done more?
No, I don't have regrets because I had to wait for clarity, right? We were going with hopes that he's going to play with us, and that didn't happen, and I had to adjust afterwards. So, that's how we're going to look at it. I don't know his timeline, but we're going to make adjustments and tweaks on the roster to address some of that.
Sorry, last one. Is there anything you can do? Do you plan on petitioning the NBA on anything about Lonzo's contract or anything, or have you not reached that?
I'm not
decision
going to
yet?
comment on that.
The first half of the season versus the second half and the success that you mentioned, the 14-9 record, how do you weigh those things? Is it separate, sort of like more recency bias, or do you look at the whole picture?
I have to look at all picture. The recent things obviously are positive. If you would have told me that we're going to be top 5 defensive team in the league prior to the season, I would think that we would struggle defensively instead of offensively, and we struggled most of our year on offense. We're 24th offense in the league. We were 16th post All-Star, although we were number 1 defensive team post All-Star weekend. So there's, things to evaluate, and that's what we're going to do.
This is maybe more for Billy, but you mentioned the clutch record this year. Why do you think that was such a problem compared to last year when obviously you guys were one of the best clutch teams in the league?
I don't know why I shifted that way, but I think that we have personnel to do so. But first half of the season, we didn't do well in that category. That kind of changed a little bit at the end, but I think lots of have that this group had more experience together, and the ups and downs were a little bit less drastic than first half of the season, because I think, a lot of times we would come off good 2-3 wins in a row, and then we have a letdown of 2-3, hard to understand losses. So I think second half of the season was much better.
For Arturas, one of the things in talking with the players over the season, you hear them said repeatedly, we're more talented than our results and our record. Do you agree with that? And if you do, in studying the team over the season, what have you seen that sort of, it lends toward that this team with that kind of talent has produced that kind of results?
Well, I think record against good teams, I think that tells you that we're better than our record. However, we are where we are. We're a 40-42 team. You know, we have to find solutions and tweaks, you know, to do better. If players said it, then that they confident that they could have done better. So, and I think we have to look at, you know, it starts with me, how I can help them and how we can do better, and goes to, you know, players and coaches as well. So we're accountable for this record, and we're going to try to, you know, change that this offseason.
Arturas, you were a former power forward. Do you think this team needs a more physical presence to be successful?
Well, physicality, we're always looking for that because, you know, obviously the 50-50 balls and, you know, and second chance points that comes from, you know, fighting for the ball. And I was actually, you know, small forward, and but I was the modern swing. That said, you know, we're always looking for toughness, resilience, and you know, that kind of profile players. And I think we got more resilient as a group as of late and since the All-Star. So I would say that we've gotten better this season.
Arturas, when you two-part question, when you look at your guys' big three with Vooch and DeMar and Zach, and then you look at the teams, you know, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Boston, it seems like that core is a little behind what those teams have. Obviously, those teams are at the top for a reason. How do you fix that gap is the first part of the question.
Well, we have to surround them with certain profile players, right? What I said before, the ones that we try to bring and surround those three with. I think once you miss any of that, you know, that falls behind. But I think we have all this time, you know, in off season to figure it out how we can do better, and that's what we're going to do. And exactly the moves or anything that we do in off season, you're going to be able to see.
And then with Vooch, you know, he's obviously expressed you guys didn't talk about it this year, and he was fine with that. He understood that. He'd like to return to Chicago. You didn't trade him at the deadline, so I think that kind of shows a little bit of your hand. But how important is it in your mind to lock him back up and keep him in this mix?
Oh, he's been awesome for us. He's been available in all 82 games. He's been our Iron Man together with Patrick Williams. He's a double-double machine. He's a top 3 player in double-doubles this year. So he's a huge part of this, you know, team. We hope to retain him.
There's another free agent in Kobe White. What's going to be what's your confidence level that you'll be able to retain him?
He's got better in every aspect of his game. I think that's a good example of a player that is, you know, developing and taking strides, and, you know, from decision making to defense to 3-point shooting, you know. So we, especially in the second half of the season, he's been really good for us and has been key in a lot of wins. So he's gotten really better.
Do you hope to resign him?
Absolutely.
Follow-up for Billy. You were kind of asked this late in the season, but do you feel that Kobe White can be a starting point guard in this league? I mean, he played that role.
Yeah, I mean, I think
on a different team in a different iteration, but can he play that role on this team next season if Lonzo's not available?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of confidence in Kobe, and I think I've said this during the course of the season. The growth that he's made, you know, from maybe a shortened rookie year with COVID to his second year, third year now, it's been pretty impressive. And a lot of the work, it's been through, you know, what he's put in. And he's a lot more equipped, I'd say, today to be maybe in that role than he was a few years ago. So, yeah, I've got a lot of confidence in Kobe and just the way he's gotten better. And like I said, he deserves all the credit. He's the one to put all the work in.
Arturas, when you look at what Patrick Williams was able to do by playing all his games this year, but what specifically do you want him working on in the offseason to improve his game overall?
I mean, for young guys, it's always consistency, right? And I think he was still trying to figure it out, you know, how to play, you know, without whatchamacallit with Vooch and DeMar and Zach to find his spots. And I think, I mean, he's our best three-point shooter. You know, he's 21 years old. So that has a athletic profile, you know, for this league. And I think he has a bright future. So
And
like his development.
Besides him, Ayo DeSumo, what would you like him to do too? What's his future here with the Bulls?
Well, I think it's a good experience for Ayo. I think Ayo is going to be a good player in this league. I think, you know, this year, you know, the defenses were ready for him and they try to figure him out, and he has to make adjustments. And I think it's going to be, you know, big off season for him. But, you know, I hope, you know, he's here for a long time as well.
Billy, I know you go and you visit these guys, and they're putting a kind of programs of what you want them to work on. How important is it for you this summer to be involved with these guys, continue to develop, whether you're going there or they're coming here? I mean, I know you travel and keep busy with that, but it seems that this is a big summer for you guys, one way or the other, whatever direction you go. How important is it for you to kind of keep on these guys and keep them in the program and going in the direction you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think the summers are always really important, not only individually but collectively, of how much time those guys spend together. I think that's always important. We are a little bit tied, you know, as it relates to what we can and can't do. We've got a good group in terms of the work. I think they'll put the work in. I think what will be important is to give them specific things this summer when you're not with them every day that they've got to try to work on to try to get better at. You know, areas that maybe were exposed that they need to put some attention on. Like, it's easy, I think, every summer to go out there and go work on my ball handling and shooting. And they're all going to do that. But, like, what are the things that are going on inside the game that's going to impact the group, and how can I impact the group in some of those things? And I think it will be important that myself and the staff, we give those guys those things to try to work on, and then certainly follow up and be with them.
Let's get a couple more.
Arturas, I wanted to ask about Zach LaVine.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a lot of sort of ambivalence, at least in the community, about him and coming into the season slow because of his off-season surgery. What's your feeling about the season Zach has had, how he's performed, and can he be a fulcrum for this team going forward?
Well, absolutely. Zach had an unbelievable second half of the season. He's back to, you know, healthy Zach, and, you know, he averaged 27 points a game and a high-efficiency score. And obviously the example of Toronto game, we don't win that game without Zach. You know, he was a huge part of it, and, you know, the way we won the game in the second half. So he's done very well for us. I think the biggest thing for us is to find how this group collectively can find ways to win more games, and I think it's falls on all of us and, you know, players, coaches, and front office to figure that out.
Arturas, you touched on some of the head-scratching losses that would happen. Did that give you any more insight into the mindset or the makeup of this group and why that would happen and repeat itself during the year?
No, that we have to find ways, the reasoning, and, you know, we can't talk about energy or, you know, coming out flat or anything like this. I think the consistency has to be with this group, and we have to figure it out, the reasoning behind it. But, you know, like the profile of the team, I would rather take this year's than last year's, where we were just beating up on bad teams. And I think this year there certain improvements were made, and I'm happy to be competitive in every game.
The last one's the loaded one. I mean, you basically said you're going to re-sign all these free agents, but I mean, I don't have the math right in front of me, but if you re-sign everybody, you got to be over the tax. And we know what this franchise's historic approach to the tax is. Michael Reinsdorf has said he will pay it, but only for a championship contender. I don't think you guys are in that realm yet. So you can't re-sign everybody.
Well, the thing is that, again, we will have all this time to figure the things out, what we're going to do, how to improve this, you know, this team moving forward. Now, in terms of, support from the ownership, from Jerry and Michael. I always had support, and it had just obviously that's going to have to be justified when we're ready to push for it, and it's a way to be seen this off season if this team is going to look like.
One last very quick one from Sam Smith.
Really a short, quick. Is the possibility of a complete rebuild, restrip, what the team went through in 2017, is that possibility on the table at all, or could it be?
To be honest, I mean, we've shown so much, improvement here, and at any time, I'm going to be open to pretty much anything, how to improve this roster. I mean, that's been thrown around all this season, this, blow up, rebuild. It's not on our minds. I think the moment we changed our minds in 2021 season to kind of to focus on winning and try to build a sustainable program here, I think that's what we focus right now on, how we can help this group and how we can improve from this year. And that's what our off-season is going to look like. We're going to consider everything and how we can compete with top teams.
Yep, no, just appreciate you guys.
Thank
during
you,
the year.
everyone,
Yep, thank you.
for-
Yep, thank you. Appreciate it.
I hope your travel gets easier. But
Yeah, that's fine. You got him every.